Hey!
Hi, this is Dr. Christine.
And Dr. Colin.
And we are your co-hosts for the exciting new podcast called
Love, Scrubs, and Stories,
where we dive deep into the world of dating and relationships and go beyond the people wearing the white coats, the scrubs, and the stethoscopes.
Come join us on this journey where we engage in dialogue and share stories of love, heartbreak, resilience, and triumphs. And we also navigate our professional lives with our hearts on our sleeves.
Please remember to subscribe and hit the notification button to stay up to date on all future episodes.
And we look forward to seeing you inside.
Hello!
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and I am also joined by my other lovely co-hosts.
I'm Dr. Christine Nguyen. Thank you for joining us on this podcast where we talk about all things dating and relationships from the lens of healthcare professionals. Tune in, whether you're single, you're committed, or somewhere in between. We've got something for everyone.
And guys, if this is your first time tuning in, please remember to smack that subscribe button. And we are super thrilled for having you on. So thank you so much for spending the time out. Christine, this topic and the guest that's coming on is a huge topic. And a lot of it at the end of the day is really relating towards the core topics of intimacy. All right. And I don't know about you, but growing up as an Asian person, it's not really talked about. In fact, very, very taboo, right? We don't really speak of it, right? And for some reason or somehow, I think, if I didn't, go into the health professions, like you wouldn't even learn about it, right? So what has been, I guess, your experiences or lack thereof of just talking about intimacy, and was it comfortable and not so comfortable? Did it give you the heebie-jeebies? What was it for you?
I know. So we're talking about sexual health and the importance of talking about it, but yet even as healthcare professionals in our personal lives, it often does not even get talked about. And even, I would say, even to this day, I don't think my family, we've ever talked about it, for sure. For sure not with my parents or even my siblings. It's just not something we talk about. It's something I talk a lot about with my friends, for sure. But it's, one aspect, being a primary care physician, as a family physician, you and I we've helped patients in this aspect of their health, the sexual health. But yet in our personal lives, it could be very much hush-hush. Yeah, depending on, each person and kind of their comfort in it. And even when, some of us need help or have questions, we want to inquire about because of experiences we've had in our own dating relationship lives that we don't always know who to reach out to, to get, accurate information. How about you, Colin? You want to expand further on sort of what's been your history on whether or not this gets talked about and
yeah, I mean, in short, it doesn't get talked about. And in a way, it almost does me and people of similar, life experiences, cultural backgrounds, and upbringings a disservice, because it's kind of like you explore or you don't really have that, foot, stepped in the door of opening conversation. Right. And I think it doesn't have to be taboo. It doesn't have to be the ick, right? That people describe nowadays. What's that new lingo, right? But we can approach it by having healthier conversations, because guess what? It's a part of our lives, physical health, mental, emotional health. We talk about different aspects of this on this podcast, and why not, And I think from a male perspective, it's super, super important to talk about, because it's important to be open and vulnerable. And that leads as a gateway, that door into these conversations. Because if we have healthier conversations with it, then we have a healthier mindset about it. And we don't go into, for example, nowadays that plagues, different aspects of, society, like pornography, that leads to different things like violence, right? Domestic abuse, right? Trafficking is a real issue, right? So I think by having healthier conversations, it helps us to approach this in a delicate, but also kind of trusted, rapport, whether it's, with patients, but I think it's on a personal level, it's important. And I definitely, from a male perspective, which I appreciate because our guest is well-versed in it. So
yeah, certainly. Intimacy is such a big part of relationships. And it's something that I think in order to, go deeper into the relationship, I think that aspect needs to be discussed at some point in the relationship. And so there's a lot that I want to learn, and what better person is it to learn this from our expert. Did you have any more to add, or shall we go ahead and shall I introduce him? And can't wait to have him kind of give us some insights and some education.
Let's bring him on.
All right, everybody, I'm super excited. Today we have Dr. A.R. Abd-El-Barr. He's a 43-year-old. Probably 33 at heart, board certified urologist who subspecializes in pediatric urology, and a father living his best life in the sunshine state of Florida. He grew up mostly in Canada, but has lived across Canada, the US, and spent time in the Middle East, and presently live and work in Southwest Florida. His parents are from Egypt and live there presently. He's a divorced dad to 3 amazing kids, ages 13, 10, and 5. So he says that work allows him to support his kids and his lifestyle, but he definitely worked to live and not vice versa. His other passion is holistic men's health. He turned his own health around during very stressful periods of his life, which includes residency, divorce, etc. So he knows how empowering it can be to be able to do this. He likes to spend his free time crossfitting, reading, learning new fun hobbies. Surfing is his latest passion, and traveling. AR, let's have you join us. How are you doing today? Hey. Thank you so much for joining us on the Love, Girls, and Stories podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was excited to be here, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you guys.
I love it. I love it. Where do you surf in the other sunshine state?
So I've been taking surf trips out to California, to your end of the country. I usually go to San Diego. So
listen, just move on over. Just move on over.
That's what I told him, and that's how I actually
dream to move to California. It would just be far from my kids, so maybe when they're a little bit older.
Yeah. And that's how we first met, AR, when you happened to, be in SoCal. And I was like, oh, hey, and I it was just like perfect timing, because I recruited you to be part of the White Coat Romance, calendar, the male calendar that we had talked about a couple of years ago. Yeah. Unfortunately, to this day, it hasn't happened yet, just because of time and things like that.
Not yet.
But it will happen.
The pictures, so
we saw, right. And you were such a great sport about it. So that's how we met. And then since then, we've been able to stay in touch, and, we formed a lot of great friendships with everyone in the group. And so I'm very just honored and thankful that we reached out to you and you said, yeah, sure, I'd love to talk about men's sexual health and educate our audience more about it. And so, yeah. So to start off, why did you decide to specialize in urology? What was it about this specialty that drew you in?
So it was very fortuitous. I went to med school with kind of an open mind about what to do, and then got to third year and didn't really have any preconceived notions about what I wanted to do. And I did a rotation in pediatric urology first, and I absolutely loved it. It was like my first month of clinical rotations, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And they're all like, no, you got to go see the other rotations first and come back. But I kept coming back. I would be on another rotation. I'd come and do cases with them. And then they were like, oh, he really wants to do this. So I always knew I wanted to do pediatric urology professionally. It's, you're helping kids out that are, they're not at fault for the diseases that they have and the conditions that they have. You make an improvement in their quality of life. And the procedures are usually short, clean, and make an impact. So it's it's not a bad lifestyle either. I fell in love with it. And then I found out you have to go do adult urology residency to do that. So my whole point in doing adult urology residency is I knew I wanted to do pediatric urology from the get-go. Into urology and then pediatric urology. So to do pediatric urology, you have to do residency, become board certified in urology, and then become subspecialty certified in pediatric urology. So that's the career path I took. And then along that path, I grew up kind of playing sports and considering myself athletic and in good health and good shape. And I kind of let that go during medical school. And when I started residency, I was 30. My first daughter was born 2 weeks before internship. And I had to go see internal medicine doctor as part of like insurance, health insurance for residents. And he's like, oh, you're like 30, 40 pounds overweight and your cholesterol is really high and I'm going to start you on a statin. And I'm like, what? Like I'm 30 and I want to live long enough to see my daughter like get married and go to college and whatever. Like I don't want to start on a statin. So he's like, well, you got a year to clean up your life and come back next year. And if you've made an improvement, I won't start you on a statin. So during internship, while I had a newborn at home and working like over 100 hours a week, I managed to start exercising again and being conscious about what I ate, and lost a whole lot of extra weight that year. And I came back the next year. He looked at my numbers and he's like, remind me, did we start you on a statin? Because your numbers are way better. I'm like, no, like I did this. And so that was the start of me kind of taking ownership of my own health and realizing how empowering that was. And that, when things hit the fan in residency and things, I always knew that I am, I'm the master of my own fate, and I can control the outcome because I did that with my own health.
Amazing, AR. And you look awesome. And
Thanks.
So certainly, urology is, family medicine physician, so it's Colin. And so urology is, a specialty that I can certainly use a lot more education on. So let's say I decide to crash a urology conference, medical conference. Okay.
Yeah.
And, you're a friendly guy and you see me and you're just wanting to be inviting and you come on over and you said, you know what, let's break the ice. What if I throw a medical pickup line, or how about a medical joke at her? Like, what would you say? What would you say to me to help kind of break the ice?
All right, this is my current favorite. What did the small-time criminals become when they stole a shipment of Viagra?
And
They became hardened criminals.
How fitting. That's awesome. That definitely broke the ice. And now we're chatting.
Yeah. So, urologists love to make Viagra jokes, penis jokes, anything under the sun, penis related. We're going to joke about it. And what I really loved about urology is that, like, going through med school and doing like ortho rotations and urology rotations, the orthopedic surgeons would make the same jokes as the urologists, but the urologists made it sound like goofy and approachable, and the orthopedics just made them sound like cringy. So, you know what I mean? So, like, we make dick jokes all the time, but like we're a friendly group, so it's just like they're not like cringy dick jokes.
Right.
Okay, right. I think we need to bring on an orthopedic. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like, being in that male locker room type of setting. It's like, we get to test out what works and what doesn't work. Right. So, and both of those professions is like very male oriented. So it's kind of like, I see.
AR, as healthcare professionals, we all deal with really high levels of stress, right? In our professional lives and also in our personal lives. And, it's really difficult to maintain that work-life balance, such as, what you've gone through and managed to like turn your life around amazingly, and how to like being able to prioritize our professional life and also just with, our personal lives with dating and relationships and being able to optimize our sexual well-being and intimate relationships. What are some of these like self-care practices, that positively influence men's sexual health, such as some of the ones that you've been able to apply to your own life that you would recommend?
Sure. I think primarily we got to remember that, physician heal thyself. You don't take care of yourself first and foremost. You're not going to be there to take care of your loved ones when they grow up. If you have kids, you're not going to be able to take care of your patients when they need you. And your career is going to be cut short by your own, health issues. So if you don't take care of yourself first and foremost, you're not going to be able to take care of other people. And you can't give from an empty bucket or an empty cup or however it's said. I think that one thing I learned very early on is that, like I said, that meeting with my care doctor was very eye-opening. Like, I just had a newborn and I was like, I want to be around for this person. I want to take care of him and I want my health to carry me through residency, which is very physically demanding. And if I'm letting my own health go, I'm not going to be able to take care of others. So, putting yourself first and foremost may seem selfish, but if you don't take care of yourself, you really aren't going to be in a position to take care of other people. So you should never sacrifice in the name of the profession. It's a very noble profession for sure, but we shouldn't sacrifice our own health at the altar of our profession. Rather, we should use our profession as a motivation and a roadmap for fixing our own health and wellness, first of all. Secondly, I think that wellness is holistic, and it's not just your numbers, it's not just your lipid values, which I think are a good reflection of your overall health, but they're not the be all and end all. And really, how you feel holistically is basically how you feel about your family relationships and your relationship with self and your relationship with friends. And those relationships are really what make life. And if you don't invest in those family, friends, relationships, you're not going to feel fulfilled and happy, and your mind, body, and spirit are not going to be working optimally. So I think having that framework of taking care of myself and taking care of my relationships first and foremost is super important. And then those other things kind of fit into place. Watching diet and exercise and mitigating stress, those things kind of fit into that framework, and they're not the be all and end all or for that. And people fall off on exercise and diet because they haven't addressed being overall healthy, overall emotionally happy and fulfilled.
Let's just say your top three of what you get a lot or see in the practice. I know you do focus on pediatric urology, but as a in terms of urology types of topics, give me an example in terms of your top three, whether it's erectile dysfunction, anything like that. What is the top three concerns that men have in general? And looking at it from a holistic point of view, what are the top three solutions that is not obvious that you feel needs to be addressed in order to, address the problem?
So I think that kind of like to go back to your introduction about talking about sexual health and sexuality. I come from a very similar Middle Eastern background. So like sex is not talked about, sexual health is not talked about, sexual relationships are not talked about. And then when we go to medical school, we learn all the negative things, like STDs and unwanted pregnancies and all the things to avoid. And nobody's highlighting sexuality in a positive light, either in our upbringings or so forth and so forth. So there's this already mental like taboo and onerous, like it's hard to deal with the sexuality thing. And I feel like that's very common amongst, men and women. But I think amongst men, we are very reticent to talk about sexual issues. And it's so very much a silent disease, meaning men's sexual dysfunction is very, very prevalent, and it's very, very not talked about. So men don't talk about it with their partners. They don't talk about it with their physicians. They don't talk about it with their friends. They don't talk about it with anybody. I think that often, if you ask the right questions, you'll find, a significant prevalence of erectile dysfunction, as well as other sexual dysfunctions, such as premature ejaculation. But you have to ask the right questions to get your patients to talk about that. And then lastly, men will often, what's even more prevalent is a subjective loss of libido that men think is just kind of natural. Men make it to their 30s and 40s and be like, oh, I don't wake up with morning erections often anymore. That's just part of aging. But it isn't necessarily part of aging, because we all know men that have procreated in their 60s and 70s, right? And we all have, on my dad's side, my grandma and grandpa made 14 babies together, right? Well into their 50s. So it's not like that when you grow older, you stop having erections. But if you grow older and let certain things about your health go neglected and deteriorate, then yes, you'll stop having erections. And if you think of like the Maslow's triangle of when it relates to health and physiology, your body's not directing resources towards sexuality and procreation until all the other needs have been met, right? So if your body's going to take away resources because things are not working optimally, it's the first thing it's going to take away from. It's going to take away from your libido, because they're like, why are you procreating if you're not taking care of your basic health? I think that erectile problems and lack of libido are probably, well, let's say sexual dysfunction and lack of libido are probably are very prevalent and the most common, not necessarily complaints, but if you ask people about them, they'll tell you about them. And then secondly, just lack of vitality in general. So, which is also related to the lack of libido, but a lack of feeling like a man, like a man, and healthy levels of testosterone gives you confidence. It gives you a mood stabilization, and it gives you, vitality to go out into the world and do great things.
What immediately comes to mind is stress. The number one thing that I think about is stress. And you said the silent killer. So, life is very, very distractful, and we're just inundated with so many different things. And we tend to kind of pile on more and more, because we just, feel like we need to, right? That's what society is telling us. Do more, no pain, no gain, right? But I can see how stress is kind of like almost like the underpinning, that through line and all those different complaints that you talk about. But I think the first step is if you can give us like some quick strategies for professionals that are listening on that deal with, men's health within their specialties or subspecialties. What are some quick like strategies to kind of open up our male patients to kind of have more of that open dialogue? Because if you don't have that open dialogue, we don't know what the problem is. You don't know what the problem is. We can't help them with a treatment or a solution, right?
Right. I think it is that you actually have to ask the questions, right? Men are not going to come to you and complain of these things if you don't outright ask them. And often in primary care, they may not have the time to do that and the resources to do that with their patients. But, that's why my passion project is launching a holistic men's health consulting where I'm going to meet with men one-on-one and ask them directly those questions and not wait for them to come to me with those questions. But if you've come to me with wanting a holistic, makeover of your health, then I'm going to have to ask you these specific questions. And then when you're faced with the specific questions, hopefully you'll give an honest and objective answer. And they're pretty, we have validated questionnaires in urology regarding erectile function. We have validated questionnaires regarding libido. And so, we can, but unless you go to the doctor and you complain of that, they're not going to give you that questionnaire. But I'm looking at men's health holistically. I'm going to give you that questionnaire and you're going to fill that questionnaire, even if you've come to me with a completely different complaint.
I see. So AR, so let's say in the realm of like dating relationship, like let's say I, as a woman, depending on the type of relationship that you're in, like want to open up this conversation. How do we, delicately kind of bring up the topic and guide the discussion so that it's in a compassionate way and it's productive and effective and helps kind of deepen the relationship further? Because I think it's always really tricky on how to go about doing that when we encounter, sexual health issues in a relationship.
Sure. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure that I have a good answer to that. I'm going to throw that back at you. I mean, I'm not. I feel like, women are the kinder gender, in general. So like how would a woman approach that kindly towards her male partner? Because I wouldn't know. I'm like too blunt with everything.
I guess what I'm asking is, how would you guys like to be received? In sort of like us asking you that question and opening up the door. Like, what would allow you to be able to open up to talk about it?
I mean, I think
this is what I'm asking.
Men generally open up when they feel safe and secure, and that the relationship isn't contingent on it. Like, hey, you've got to go see a doctor about this problem or I'm breaking up with you. That's never going to work, right? But
ultimatums. No ultimatums.
Ultimatums generally don't work. But hey, look, I really want to deepen our connection and I feel really safe talking to you about this and I'm going to accept you however you want. But I think it would be great if we want to, have more intimacy, have more energy to enjoy each other, have greater pleasure, etc. I think you should see somebody to talk about these things because they're not unsolvable. They're not immutable. They're not, oh, you're 40 years old, you're going to have this problem. They're not fixed in stone. You can change these things And so, hey, I heard this great podcast with AR on, on Love, Scrubs, and Stories. And he says,
5-star reviews.
And he says that a lot of these things are fixable. So, why don't we get you to somebody to see what we can do about it?
Yes, great. Thanks for those
I like
tips.
that. Yeah, because I think, as another male, it's depending on, there's many layers, right? You have the societal layer of how men is perceived. And then you have, depending on your cultural upbringing, whether, it's talked about, not talked about, how it's nuanced, and everyone views sexuality, relationships different depending on the upbringing. And I think, to your point, AR, it's really about feeling safe and comfortable. And I think if you're in a heterosexual relationship for, females specifically, to kind of make sure that conversations do not lead in a way where guys feel, I guess, emasculated or being told what to do. Because, males that are more alpha, we don't like to be told what to do. We want to have that confidence of, I know what to do, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, oh, we don't know what to do, right? So how can we, delicately together being able to kind of approach this topic that's super important to not just the individual male health, but that health of that, power couple, right?
The Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast is a collaboration and co-production between the Chef Doc and White Coat Romance.
The Chef Doc is a wellness platform that offers innovative approaches to thriving and offers a self-empowerment book, podcast series, on-demand masterclass series, as well as a brand new app. The app provides self-guided education such as food as medicine, self-care, and resilience. Coaching services are also available, whether you prefer one-on-one or group type settings. Please go now to your app store as well as Apple as Google Play to download for free.
White Coat Romance is a dating app for healthcare and health-related professionals and students in the US and Canada. It's a lively space where you can find love, companionship, and build meaningful connections with like-minded professionals. If you're single, go to the App Store and Google Play to download and join our vibrant community.
As we both serve these amazing communities, we also acknowledge the value of continuing education. Therefore, we're super excited to share an enticing opportunity with our listeners. Our episodes are continuing education eligible. That's right. You now have the opportunity to earn valuable credits while enjoying our content.
Rest assured, the episodes will always remain free as we are committed to supporting our communities and amplifying the voices of healthcare professionals. To get a better understanding of how this works, the first 3 episodes are free to obtain, then the rest of the podcast episodes are at a nominal cost.
So you might be asking who can earn credits? Well, physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians associates, pharmacists, dentists, as well as dietitians and dietetic technicians.
If you find yourself in need of CE credits, we kindly ask you to consider directing your CE funds towards supporting our cause. Your contribution would greatly help us nurture our podcast production and continue to bring you valuable content.
We are deeply grateful for your support. From all of us here at Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast, thank you so much for choosing us.
And enjoy the rest of this episode.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So aside from, the physical factors affecting sexual health, and, certainly there's the emotional and psychological aspects of it. Can we touch on a common concern for many people regarding performance anxiety that's quite prevalent? And how can, we address the performance related worries when it comes to intimacy, and what role does self-confidence play in this aspect? What do you think?
Sure. I mean, in the traditional urologic framework, erectile dysfunction was divided into, psychogenic and organic. And I think more and more that is being realized that they're on the same spectrum and they always intermingle, and every patient will have some component of both. So yes, there are definitely organic diseases that lead to erectile dysfunction, but every patient with erectile dysfunction is a man, and that man has complex emotions regarding sexuality, and then there's an interplay of that. And as they have some organic erectile dysfunction, it's going to impact their confidence. That's going to lead to the psychogenic component coming in. So, and if you have a psychogenic erectile dysfunction, similarly, you lose your confidence, you're not getting erections, you lose interest in sex, and sex is very much a use it or lose it thing. If you're if your penis is not getting regular blood flow, the quality of your erections actually goes down with time. So it's a use it or lose it. So I think we're looking at it more holistically and in a spectrum kind of thing. Yeah. So self-confidence plays a huge role. And what's being often done is that men are being, even if it's acknowledged that that their erectile dysfunction is mostly psychogenic. Well, if it's mostly psychogenic, but in this context, when they're in, heterosexual sex with their partner, for example, they're not getting erections, but they can get erections with pornography or fantasy or whatever. Well, build their confidence by giving them either PRN use Viagra or Cialis, so that it's a lot easier for them to get erections in that context specific. And then they build their confidence with that, and then you can wean them off of that with time. So that's being used more and more, not just in organic erectile dysfunction, but being used in, psychogenic erectile dysfunction to restore patients' confidence. The use also of, sex therapists and sexual counseling has become super prevalent. More and more people are becoming, going to licensed sex therapists. There's a much more demand for sex therapists out there, because they can take a look at, even patients, like I said, that have mostly organic erectile dysfunction, can help them restore their confidence. And so that performance anxiety piece of the puzzle gets, hopefully addressed. So using organic medications, even in patients that have what would be traditionally considered psychogenic erectile dysfunction, as well as using non-organic interventions such as sex therapy in patients that have organic erectile dysfunction. So we're approaching it in a much more holistic way, and both ends of the spectrum benefit.
AR, I'm curious, and you can please let me know about the trends and the data that shows this. But I feel like performance anxiety, erectile dysfunction, especially the psychogenic component of it, and we're seeing these trends of younger and younger males having this issue. And I would love for you to kind of speak upon, what is actually contributing to that and or causing that, and is it, are we too much preemptively, just kind of like a Band-Aid, giving them Viagra and Cialis too soon, because, we're not really doing the hard work in terms of exploring what are these causes, right? If we find out that it's really not organic, right? If it's not related to blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, for example, what is causing these, these trends of these males that are having earlier and earlier problems?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't have the data. And so mostly what I have are like my own biases or preconceived notions. There's definitely real organic reasons for the increase in prevalence of erectile dysfunction, right? The great increase in obesity, and the fact that the obesity curve is being pushed earlier and earlier. So we have a lot more, obese kids now, and obese teenagers and obese young adults. So it makes sense that those same obese young adults are having higher and higher rates of erectile dysfunction. So there's real organic reasons why erectile dysfunction is more prevalent. Are there real psychogenic reasons also, like, prevalence of pornography and desensitization, and, context specific reasons why men are getting aroused outside the bedroom but not in the bedroom, etc. Is that true also? Probably, but we know that there are organic reasons why more and more men have erectile dysfunction and sexual dysfunction in general. And so I don't think it's premature to give a man of any age who's having erectile dysfunction a PDE5 inhibitor. I don't buy into that. Even if it's mostly psychogenic, it can help if it's used correctly, and they use, PRN and Viagra for bedroom encounters, but not for pornography. They can rebuild their confidence in the bedroom. So I feel like I feel like there's enough organic reasons why there's more erectile dysfunction that we don't have to say, oh, this is all psychogenic. I think there's definitely a psychogenic component to it, and that's more prevalent also. But there's enough organic disease out there that for any patient that you treat with that, you're doing them a favor.
I see.
And not
Thanks for clarifying.
Service.
Yeah. I think I actually did hear that too from some urologist friends as well when we talked about it in the past. And certainly with your, holistic approach to men's sexual health, that, it's in conjunction. Like you don't just do this part, and not address some of the other aspects that could be contributing, to the issue. Yeah. So what are some of the common misconceptions about men's sexual health that you often encounter? And what would you say to, how would you debunk some of those misconceptions so that it can lead to healthier relationships?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll address the bigger question of the misconceptions about men's health in general and not just sexual health. Because
certainly. Yeah, please.
A more holistic view of it. And I feel like the biggest myth is that as a man, your health is immutably and irreversibly going to decline in your 30s and 40s. And that's the biggest myth. And yes, if you if you maintain the status quo and you eat the same junk food you've been eating and getting away with as a teenager and in your 20s into your 30s and 40s, yes, you will progress and gain weight and have the resultant health issues. If you follow the trends and become physically sedentary and once you stop playing high school sports, yes, then immutably you're going to become less strong, less vital, and your testosterone levels will drop with age. But those are some big ifs, right? So if you change those ifs, suddenly it's not immutable and irreversible anymore. I think that's the biggest myth, that it's an irreversible change in testosterone levels. Yes, testosterone levels do tend to decline decade by decade, starting in your late 30s and 40s. That being said, if you mitigate that with resistance training, a whole food diet, etc., you can maintain those levels with a very, very, very slight, it'd be very hard to notice a difference yourself from year to year. And in fact, if in your 20s and 30s, like me, had you let your health fall to the wayside and not paid attention to that, then you can, in your 30s and late 30s and 40s, you can actually double your testosterone level just by going back to the things you used to do in high school and lifting heavy weights and eating nourishing whole foods. So you can actually reverse that trend. So it's not irreversible. So I think that's like the biggest myth that I'd love to see men counter. The other biggest myth is that hormones need to be replaced, right? So I strongly believe that, your hormone levels should be monitored. They should be measured, and they absolutely should be restored to physiologic levels if they've taken a hit due to disease or disuse. But replacement is a last resort to restoration, because when you start replacing exogenous hormones, you're shutting off your own production, and then you're dependent on that. And not just are you dependent on that, but the natural variation, in your daily testosterone levels, which is important for others, you take that away. The other hormones that are involved get taken away. So you're just giving one testosterone, or you might do like a CERM or something that's going to increase some other hormones. But generally, it's a one-dimensional approach when you replace. Whereas if you are restoring naturally, it's a lot more holistic. And yes, there are some men who are either too far down the line of natural decay, where they can't lift weights, they can't eat the foods they need to eat to restore their natural testosterone levels, or they've had surgeries or chemotherapy that will impair their natural hormone production. So yes, there are men that we don't have a choice. It's a last resort. You have to replace their hormones. But the vast majority of men can restore their levels. And so, yes, I think the second biggest myth is that levels need to be restored by replacement or exogenous replacement, whereas you can restore and, double a man in his 40s testosterone by having him do the right things.
Wow, double, huh? That's amazing. Yeah, that you can actually not just, like you said, not just reverse, but in a positive direction. That's wonderful news. Yeah.
I think that's very important to hear, especially for men, because, it's very easy to just let yourself go and then be told, or your perception is like, oh, it's inevitable. Yeah, it's inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, puts a damper on things, and that prevents you from really taking back, not necessarily ownership, but in a way, yes. But like you said, it's debunking that myth and letting them know, like, oh, I can actually be empowered and actually take back my health by doing X, Y, Z, right? Like for you was, eating better and, increasing your physical activity, right? Like, come on. I mean, have you looked at his arms?
Yeah, let's see those guns.
But yeah, it's important.
I don't want to be like cringy and like flex on camera.
Well, AR, I'm going to get personal on you. Okay. So I would imagine being a urologist, could probably lead to some, interesting experiences. So how has your profession influenced your perspective and your approach on dating and relationships, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. I mean, I think that going into urology and being exposed to just the normalization of sex was super, empowering to me, because where I grew up and how I grew up, sex was not normal or talked about. And then I went to medical school and residency, and all urologists joke about is sex. And so that normalization was, I think, very helpful for me personally, and allowed me to like recognize some problems that I was having, that I've faced myself, because it's no longer taboo to talk about, and it's no longer taboo to seek treatment for. And so it's very empowering to just normalize it and joke about it. And like I said, you can make the same dick jokes and it can be super cringy, or it can be like kind of goofy and like make it normal and like, hey, we all have them, like all us men have them, and they're all like a source of pain and consternation and heartbreak for us. So let's
I think if we can find the humor, not just, in our male parts, but in all aspects of our life, the better for it, right? Like they say that laughter is the, best form of medicine. So definitely laugh on.
Yeah, certainly this has been a very enlightening conversation. And Colin, unless you have any other questions, I thought I'd ask AR, what some of the key takeaways, you would like to share with our audience of healthcare professionals to remember when it comes to men's sexual health and men's health. Men's health and building meaningful relationships. Like what would you the top key takeaways?
Yeah, I think that like men's health is somewhat neglected in medicine and health in general, and especially a holistic view of it. And, we have women's health doctors. Every single woman sees a women's health doctor, but not every man, goes to see a men's health doctor. By far, most don't until they're going to see a urologist for problems that they're having later on in life. And what I'd really like to see is a shift in framework and a normalization about talking about these issues that men face, and realizing that they're not immutable and irreversible, and that men can take control of their health and do it in a holistic way. And that will give them the confidence to approach life. Because if you imagine just restoring testosterone levels through replacement, for example, gives men a sense of vitality, gives men a sense of confidence, gives men the energy to go out and make positive impact in this world. Now imagine when they do that, not through taking an exogenous source that they're dependent on, but through their own hard work and approaching things holistically and working with a men's health consultant, then that gives them even more empowerment to realize that they didn't do it with the help of some pill or somebody else. They did that themselves. So I really want that to be the takeaway message, that men don't have to suffer in silence. These changes that happen with age are not irreversible and they're not immutable, and that men can take control of these things, and they'll be the better for it, and they'll be better partners, spouses, fathers, physicians, members of society in general. So I'm all for taking care of us first.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, because as a male, it's very important for us to have these conversations, whether it gets us to cringe or not, I mean, cringe or not, I think it's important to have them, start them, as young as possible. And there's a lot of value in having those uncomfortable moments. And I think, it's part of being human, to have these emotions, but it's important to have these conversations. And, we didn't talk about this, but, I don't want it to kind of be exuded or manifested in a very negative way, right? The overuse of, pornography that leads to abuse, that leads to like trafficking, for example. It's a very real thing in our society. And if we can have these conversations and open these up, the more we have them, the better, for us. So I think it's a very important thing to at least, basic requisite to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we end, AR, so what would be the best way should, our audience members want to reach out to you, connect with you? Should they have a question, or perhaps, would like to have some friendly conversation? What are the best ways to connect with you?
Yeah, you can probably reach me on Instagram. I think you'll put up my Instagram handle. I have my personal Instagram handle, and then my Icaria Health, which is my pet project, which is just kind of launching for holistic men's health consulting. And I think that, it's going to, a specialist to talk about this. It may be a high bar for a lot of people, and I don't want them to you don't have to come talk to me. Talk to your own healthcare provider next time you're there, because they're not going to ask you the questions. They're not going to give you a validated questionnaire about your sexual erectile function and libido. Tell them, hey, I'm not waking up with morning erections anymore, and is that okay? What can I do about that? Go to a gym. I'm wearing my CrossFit MD level 1 t-shirt today to plug CrossFit, because that is a big tool, what helped me transform my own health. And CrossFit Health is an initiative trying to get doctors involved in CrossFit. And so they actually offer their level 1 CrossFit coaching certification for free for, it was MDs. Now it's actually all healthcare providers.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's awesome.
You actually become certified as a CrossFit level 1 coach for free if you're a healthcare provider. And and there's CrossFit gyms on, where I live, at least on every block pretty much. So go to a CrossFit gym, inquire about CrossFit Health, go to your own physician, inquire about ways to improve your own health, or come, chat with me on Instagram.
Yeah, follow him, guys. If he posts a lot of really fun CrossFit stories and reels. And so I
always have fun at CrossFit. That's one thing. But I will make a joke about it. I will show up, I will die at CrossFit, and I will make a joke about it. And you can count on that.
And stay tuned for sure. The calendar, right, Christine?
We're going to make that happen.
We gotta make it happen. A little bit of extra muscle, so if you want to bring me back out for
we gotta bring my photographer friend Kim.
Yeah,
she actually did the photo shoot, Colin. So
awesome.
That'll be a lot of fun.
AR, thank you so much for taking the time out. We really appreciate it on a very important topic, several topics actually, but under the umbrella of men's health. Thank you. To the work that you do. And I think that by talking more about this, it opens up the floodgates for healthier conversations that benefits not just males, but also their partners as well, and on a community as a whole. So we appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us today.
You guys are awesome. Thanks for making it fun.
Oh, you're such a good sport. So guys, thanks for tuning in and joining us. And if you please go ahead and rate and subscribe and give us a 5-star review, especially with Dr. Abd-El-Barr here giving us quality content, very educational that we've all benefited from. And with that, let's say goodbye to Dr. Abd-El-Barr, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Guys, see you on the next episode, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to this channel. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt like this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know as well.
As a reminder, this channel does not offer medical advice. All opinions expressed are ours and our guests only. It is for general informational purposes only and does not replace professional healthcare services. Please consult your own healthcare provider for any medical issues you may have.
Until the next episode, whether you're in and out of your scrubs,
please remember to love yourself and others and lead with kindness.
Bye.